President Trump says the economy is booming, but many experts say he is lying and his biggest economic claims don't match the facts. He talks about record investments, cheap gas, and tariffs paid by foreign countries. But is that really true? If the economy is so strong, why do everyday families still struggle with rising costs? Tonight we break down the numbers behind Trump's claims and the reality Americans are living. You might be surprised how different the truth really looks. Before starting, please subscribe my channel. You will benefit greatly from this. Is America really booming, or is it political storytelling? That question matters because the economy decides elections, shapes families' futures, and defines how people experience everyday life. Leaders talk about growth rates, investment numbers, and big economic promises. But ordinary people measure the economy in a different way. They measure it when they buy groceries, pay rent, fill their cars with fuel, or open their electricity bills. Right now, many Americans hear that the economy is strong. They hear that inflation is controlled and jobs exist, yet millions still feel pressure every single day. The gap between official economic claims and real-life experiences has become one of the biggest political debates in the country, and that gap becomes even clearer when we listen carefully to economic claims and compare them with verified data.
In 12 months, I secured commitments for more than $18 trillion pouring in from all over the globe. I believe the tariffs paid for by foreign countries will, like in the past, substantially replace the modern-day system of income tax.
And the facts say, Daniel?
A whole lot of nonsense there. I'm going to start from the end. So the president claimed that tariffs are paid for by foreign countries. They simply are not. The tariff payments to the U.S. government are made by U.S. importers, and we know from...
The idea of $18 trillion in investment sounds powerful. It creates the image of money flowing into America from every corner of the world. It suggests a historic economic transformation, but economic reality tells a very different story. Even official government sources reported much smaller investment commitments, and economists say that even those numbers include future promises that may never fully materialize. Large numbers can create excitement, but excitement is not the same as proof. Economic success cannot be measured by announcements alone. Real investment shows up in factories built, jobs created, and wages rising steadily. When promises are counted as achievements, the picture becomes misleading. Even more important is the claim about tariffs. Many people believe tariffs punish foreign countries. It sounds logical and politically appealing, but economic evidence shows something else entirely. Tariffs are paid by American importers when goods enter the country. Businesses then raise prices to protect their profits. The final cost lands on ordinary consumers. Tariffs don't punish China. They punish shoppers. Multiple economic studies from universities and research institutions have shown that tariffs raise prices on everyday goods, such as appliances, clothing, and building materials. Families pay more even when they do not realize it. Trade wars don't lower prices, they increase hidden taxes. When tariffs rise, companies face higher costs. Those costs spread through the entire supply chain. A washing machine becomes more expensive. A car repair becomes more expensive. Even groceries can become more expensive because transportation and packaging costs rise. Political speeches often describe tariffs as victories. Economic data describes them as price increases. And for families trying to stretch their budgets, that difference matters more than any speech.
Yeah, so he said most states have gas prices below $2.30. Not a single state yesterday had a gas price average, according to AAA, below $2.37. And then how many stations were below $2? Well, I spoke to Gas Buddy, a firm that tracks more than 150,000 gas stations around the U.S. They told me that 4 stations yesterday were selling for below $2 aside from special discounts. 4 out of 150,000.
Fuel prices shape how people feel about the economy faster than almost anything else. Drivers see the numbers every time they stop at a gas station. That is why gasoline prices often become a political symbol. When prices fall, leaders claim success. When prices rise, leaders face criticism. But the truth is more complicated than any political statement. Gasoline prices depend mostly on global oil markets. Production decisions by oil-producing countries, refinery capacity, transportation costs, and seasonal demand all influence prices. No president can directly control those forces. When only 4 stations out of 150,000 sell gasoline below $2, that is not a national trend. That is a rare exception. 4 gas stations cannot define an economy. National averages matter because they reflect what most people actually pay. A few isolated discounts do not change the daily experience of millions of drivers. Families planning their monthly budgets rely on realistic prices, not extreme examples. Energy costs also affect almost everything else. Higher fuel prices raise delivery costs for stores. They raise airline ticket prices. They raise heating costs. Even online shopping becomes more expensive because shipping companies face higher expenses. A speech cannot change prices at the pump. Economic reality moves according to supply and demand, not political optimism. Even when prices fall slightly, they often remain higher than before major inflation spikes. Many households still remember when gasoline was cheaper and wages stretched further. That memory shapes how people judge economic success more than any statistic ever could.
If you have a really strong economy, and we do, I mean, growth is pretty robust, jobs are rebounding a little bit, inflation's under control. So all of those things are true, but it's very, very hard for people to afford this economy. There are many prices that you can't avoid paying for that are outpacing overall inflation.
Economic growth sounds impressive when expressed in percentages. A 2% or 3% growth rate appears strong on paper. Job numbers can also look positive. Inflation around 2 or 3% seems stable compared with past crises. Yet daily life tells a more complicated story. Strong economies on paper can still feel broken at home. The biggest pressure comes from unavoidable costs. Housing payments, rent, electricity, insurance, and medical bills cannot be postponed. Families must pay them every month no matter how strong the economy looks in official reports. Statistics don't pay rent. Housing costs in many cities have risen faster than wages for years. Mortgage rates increased sharply after the pandemic period, locking many families out of home ownership. Renters face constant increases while supply remains limited. Energy bills continue to rise in many regions even when overall inflation slows. Insurance premiums have increased because of climate risks and repair costs. Healthcare expenses remain one of the largest burdens for middle-income families. Average inflation numbers hide these pressures because they combine many categories together. Prices for electronics or clothing may fall while essential costs continue rising. The final average looks moderate, but real life feels expensive. For many households, paychecks have not kept pace with the costs that matter most. That gap creates frustration and uncertainty. People hear that the economy is strong, yet their savings shrink and their bills grow. But the deeper story is even more troubling.
Yeah, we call it the K-shaped economy because if you're at the top of the K, you're pretty wealthy, you probably have a home, and you probably refinanced that home, say around the pandemic when rates were between 2 and 3%. You're doing pretty good right now, but if you don't have a really high income, you might not have a home that you own, and you're really struggling right now to find anywhere that you can live affordably. And so what that's caused is this kind of K-shaped divergence, which is not a new trend, let's be clear, but it is getting worse. And it's getting worse largely because of the housing market, but also because of the elimination of some social services, other things like that that are making it a little bit harder for people to...
One of the clearest signs of a divided economy is the K-shaped pattern. One line moves upward while another moves downward. Wealthier households continue gaining wealth through investments, property ownership, and financial assets. Meanwhile, middle-income and lower-income families face rising costs without matching income growth. Booming stock markets don't mean booming lives. Many wealthier Americans locked in low mortgage rates years ago. Their monthly housing payments stayed stable while home values increased. Rising property prices actually made them richer, but families who do not already own homes face a completely different reality. High interest rates and expensive housing markets make homeownership feel impossible. Prosperity is not trickling down. Housing affordability has become one of the biggest economic barriers in the country. In many cities, rent has increased faster than wages for years. A growing share of income now goes toward housing costs. That leaves less money for education, healthcare, and savings. Mortgage rates rising from around 3% to much higher levels dramatically changed affordability. A house that once required a manageable payment now demands hundreds or even thousands more per month. Many families who could once qualify for loans are now priced out entirely. Wealth inequality continues widening because assets grow faster than wages. Families who own stocks or property benefit from economic growth. Families who depend only on paychecks often fall behind. This creates a silent divide where official statistics suggest stability while financial pressure grows underneath. A strong economy should lift everyone. When only some groups move forward, the economy may grow, but the sense of fairness disappears.
When you start deporting a significant amount of your construction workforce, when you're deporting people who work in agricultural fields or in meat processing plants, etc., then the cost of food is going to either continue to be up or go higher. The cost of housing is going to continue to be high or go even higher. So they really are interrelated here.
Immigration policy is often discussed as a political issue, but it is also deeply connected to economic reality. Many industries depend heavily on immigrant labor. Agriculture, construction, food processing, and hospitality rely on workers willing to take physically demanding jobs. When large numbers of workers disappear from the labor force, businesses struggle to fill positions. Crops remain unharvested. Construction projects slow down. Processing plants operate below capacity. These disruptions reduce supply while demand remains strong. You cannot deport workers and expect cheaper prices. Labor shortages force employers to raise wages to attract replacements. Higher wages can be positive for workers, but businesses often pass those costs on to consumers through higher prices. Food becomes more expensive. Housing construction becomes more expensive. Restaurant prices rise. Labor shortages create inflation. The construction industry offers a clear example. Fewer available workers mean fewer homes built. When housing supply falls behind demand, prices rise. Rent increases. Home ownership becomes harder to achieve. The housing shortage becomes worse. Agriculture shows similar effects. Farms rely on seasonal labor for planting and harvesting. Without enough workers, production drops, reduced supply pushes grocery prices higher. Families see the impact immediately when they shop for basic food items. Economic systems depend on balance. Removing a large share of the workforce disrupts that balance. Policies designed to solve one problem can unintentionally create new economic pressure. The final cost often appears in the daily budgets of ordinary families.
But the problem is that far and away the biggest concern people have is the economy, and he told a story of the economy that did not match people's experience. And you cannot jawbone people into feeling what they're not experiencing, so that's a problem for him. The most interesting thing to me from a strategic standpoint was I think you do see the blueprint of how they hope to attack these midterm elections.
Economic messaging has always been a powerful political tool. Leaders try to shape how voters see the country's direction. Positive language creates optimism. Strong claim create confidence. But there is a limit to what messaging can achieve. Campaign speeches cannot replace reality. When voters evaluate the economy, they rely on their own experiences. They compare today's bills with last year's bills. They compare rent payments, grocery receipts, and utility costs. Personal experience becomes more convincing than any political promise. Voters trust their bills more than politicians. Political strategies often emphasize tax cuts as solutions to economic stress. Lower taxes can increase take-home income, but they do not automatically reduce everyday costs. A tax refund may provide temporary relief, yet rising rent or health insurance premiums can quickly absorb that extra money. Economic messaging becomes especially important before elections. Leaders try to highlight positive trends while minimizing negative ones. This approach is common across political systems because economic perception strongly influences voting decision. Approval ratings often reflect economic confidence. When people feel secure financially, support tends to rise. When affordability becomes difficult, dissatisfaction grows. Economic anxiety can change political outcomes faster than almost any other issue. When public experience and political narratives move in different directions, trust begins to weaken. That gap becomes one of the most important forces shaping democratic decisions. The full picture reveals a complicated economic story. Investment claims sound impressive, but real numbers tell a more careful story. Tariffs promised as economic weapons often become hidden costs for consumers. Gasoline examples highlight how selective statistics can create misleading impressions. Rising costs show why affordability matters more than growth rates. At the same time, inequality continues widening. Some households gain wealth while others struggle with rising expenses. Immigration policies reshape labor markets in ways that influence food prices and housing costs. Economic messaging grows stronger as elections approach, but personal experience remains the final judge. Now, the real question is simple. Are you really feeling this economic boom in your daily life? Are your bills lower than before, or is prosperity just a political story? Share your opinion in the comments. Do you think the economy is improving or becoming harder to afford? And if you found this analysis useful, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more deep economic analysis.